fans, wherever you may be. Thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Hey, hi, Seahawks fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers, here to talk Seahawks football. We are here to preview the Monday night game between the Seattle Seahawks and the Detroit Lions. This one's going to be in Detroit against Dan Campbell and company, Jared Goff. And this game's a whole lot more interesting to me now at this point in the season, game 4, than it was even at the very beginning when we were doing our predictions, because Seattle has been slightly better than I thought they would be. And I'm not trying to degrade what Seattle is. I thought they were going to be pretty fantastic. And Detroit slightly less at this point in the season than everyone has predicted that they would be. Now they're 2-1, but their offense has been a little anemic at times. They've struggled with a few injuries, and just really interested in talking to you today about the game. Welcome in, Keith. How you doing?
I'm doing good. This is going to be a fun game. Monday Night Football is always fun, and Seattle's got a tremendous record on Monday Night Football. But we've got a lot to talk about here. The Lions they're on paper, they should be one of the top teams, top 5. And they haven't been yet this year, but the talent's still there. So I'm just wondering if it's when do they put together a complete game and really look like the Lions from last year?
If you were going to ask me, to be completely honest, I'd still say that they were in the number 2 overall ranked NFC team. Maybe even number 1, honest. Mm-hmm. I think that the 49ers, everyone still wants to put the 49ers at the number 2 or number 3 spot in all the power rankings and so forth.
Not that
I don't know what they've done to deserve that, honestly.
Their offense is legit statistically, but their defense is bad.
Yeah. So I think that Detroit's a little ahead of them on my list, and everyone wants to discount Seattle for similar reasons in that they haven't done anything yet, and they're kind of coming from catch-up mode, being ranked in the 20s prior to the season on most people's lists. And I find it funny that, now they're landing in the top 5 on a few lists, a top 10 on most lists, power rankings, which is interesting to me because when you look at the opponents that Seattle has faced, the strength of schedule is nearly dead last in the NFL, although Seattle contributed to some of those losses and the way that those teams looked and played. Where do you think that Seattle is on the hierarchy in the NFC?
It is so hard to tell at this point because you have, what you're saying, yeah, Seattle contributed to those teams looking bad, but they looked bad in the other games they played too, that weren't against Seattle. So that is, it's hard. It's hard with such a short, this isn't a big sample size. Denver actually came back and looked a little bit better this last week. New England's been competitive, way more so than we expected them to be. But the Dolphins didn't have a quarterback, so it's hard. It's hard to place where Seattle goes here. They look every bit like a playoff team. And whether that's against, the bad opponent or not, you have to beat the team that's in front of you, and they can't control which team's in front of them. But what they can control is what they can control. And they look like a playoff team, especially that defense, especially the pass defense.
So, you said they can't control who's in front of them. Well, this week happens to be, what I think is the first legit test that they will face as a team this season on the road against the Lions. You can take a look at the Vikings, which I think so far have played outstanding
Yes,
this
they have.
season. They've got a point differential of like 55, 85 points scored, 30 points allowed in 3 games. That's a well put together team. I have a hard time understanding how they sustain that success, but they look good so far. Lions are right there, obviously. Packers are going to be there. Everyone ranked the Bears in the top 10 prior to the season, and now that they're 1-2 and look pretty much as though I thought that they would look, everyone's kind of bailing on them.
Well, everyone should be bailing on them. Like, how are...
I don't know how that happened. Honestly.
Like, yeah. Can we figure out what is going on with like people thinking that team was going to be good?
Yeah,
like,
I don't know.
I get wanting them to be because then it would be a cool story, but looking at the the talent on that roster and thinking that they will be good is different than wanting them to be good because it'll be a cool story. So
let's let's focus on this game. So the cool thing, and you mentioned it earlier, the Seattle's defense is legit. They rank 4th in points allowed so far this season, 2nd in yards allowed, 5th in points per drive, 2nd in passing yards allowed, 4th on first downs allowed, 4th on third downs, 5th in red zone,
11th in yards per attempt.
First in yards per attempt. They're up there with sacks and quarterback hits and pressures. And they're doing it all from all levels of the defense and against subpar teams nonetheless, but they're beating the teams that are subpar very distinctly. They're not allowing teams to kind of creep back in and so forth that we saw in the Pete Carroll era often. And it looks to be consistent. It looks to be repeatable. And I'm very anxious to see what they do against this Lions team. Now, one of the strengths that the Lions have that makes me very nervous for this game is their running game. And so that's going to be the true test. I mean, they've got Sam Laporta at tight end and Brock Wright, both really good blocking guys. Their offensive line is known to be a really nice, formidable unit, although Frank Ragnow, their center, is going to be out in this game. So that'll be an interesting kind of thing. But Jamar Gibbs and David Montgomery are legit 1-2 there for them. And Jared Goff, throws out of play action. I think one of the league's top play action guys out there. And so they make it tough on teams. Now, Seattle conversely makes it tough for teams like Jared Goff. In fact, last year, when Baltimore faced the Lions, Baltimore was ranked number 1 on scoring defense, and they beat the Lions 38-6 and held them to 5 third down conversions out of 16 attempts. And we've seen so far that, Seattle's defense looks as formidable as that Baltimore defense last year. Mike McDonald's just done a masterful job so far at putting that together. What do you expect the Lions to do against the Seahawks to mitigate the Seahawks pass rush in particular?
I think we're going to see so many wide receiver screens, bubble screens, just quick throws out, because I don't think that Dan Campbell wants Jared Goff getting himself clobbered, which we saw last week. Like, the Seahawks are going to get after your quarterback and hit him and all that kind of stuff. And their line is better, and so there's reason to think that they're going to have more success. I think that it becomes one of those things where you just want to get the ball out of your quarterback's hands, and so you're going to see a lot of that stuff, and you're going to see a lot of running. You've got Gibbs there. Like, get the Seahawks defense running sideline to sideline and tire him out. And that's honestly, that's what I'm worried about, is that I think that they are going to be able to do some things that is going to test Seattle's depth. So,
yeah, I think that, in addition to those things, I think they run 12 personnel.
Oh yeah.
All game. So they already are fifth in the NFL in running 2 tight end sets. They run the ball out of those sets 54.2% of the time. So I think, and also Jared Goff, I said he uses play action a lot. He uses play action the second most right now in the NFL out of those sets. And they've got 309 yards passing out of those sets, which ranks number 1 in the NFL so far. So I think that you just end up seeing more of that because they're going to ride what they do well. And we're going to ride what we do well. This is going to be a game of attrition to me. Now, in prior years, we've seen this turn into a shootout for the most part. Lots of points scored. It wouldn't surprise me if that's kind of the way it ends up, but it also could be kind of a schloggy game where Seattle struggles a little bit against their defense, and their defense is no slouch. I mean, Seattle's ranked first. I think overall the Lions are ranked 5th so far. But I do believe that our defense is equipped to kind of really slow them down. The running thing worries me, but I think we're probably going to have personnel in to be geared towards playing the run, I think, in this game.
I don't know because
we've already got the back end stuff kind of handled. So I think they really do stack the box in this game.
Well, I mean, I agree that I think they're going to stack the box a little bit, but linebacker depth is a problem. And the other thing is that can your typical middle linebacker actually keep up with Jahmyr Gibbs? He's got so much speed that I wouldn't be surprised if they run a lot of big nickel and have an extra safety in.
I think you see a lot of night. I think you see a lot of night in this game. I mean, we've already seen him have this sideline to sideline speed and the instincts. Really, I've been surprised so far how well he's played.
The thing is, he has not played that much, and he gave up a third of his snaps this last game to Drake Thomas.
Yeah,
Drake Thomas
Coach spoke to that actually.
Had 19 snaps in that last game. So the coaches,
they really like his athleticism.
Yeah, the coaches pulled Tyrese Knight not just for to put it for the nickel and that kind of stuff. They pulled him for Drake Thomas at other times, and that to me is it makes me wonder a little bit. Like, are we going to see as much of Knight as we would expect? Simply because I think the coaches are seeing something that they're still needing act more of, and they're willing to get a guy like Thomas in there because that athleticism just speaks for itself. And it's not that Knight's bad, but
so Thomas could be a factor. I think the other 2 factors, and you kind of spoke to it, of running nickel and dime stuff with Kayvon Wallace and Kobe Bryant. I agree with that. In that Kobe Bryant was named a captain in this game. I think the team values him, sees him as a hard worker, very diligent in practice, and gives him opportunities on the field that he's earned. And I couldn't feel better for the kid after the last couple seasons of really struggling in schemes that have been misfits for him. They're finding ways to use him, and he's paying off for that coaching staff so far.
Do you know how many snaps he's played this year?
I do not. I do not have snap count stuff.
In 3 games, he's played 21 snaps.
Wow. It's interesting. If you listen, and I have the last couple weeks to Mike McDonald's coaching show on ESPN, and he's spoken about Kobe Bryant more than once about his work ethic and his drive in practices, that he's earned opportunities to play. And then they named him captain of this game, 1 of 4. So that does surprise me a little bit, that he's really only played 21 snaps. not sure what to think about that. We'll see how it goes in this game. I do think that, the key to this game for Seattle, I think, is going to be limiting explosive plays, forcing the Lions to march up and down the field in small increments. I think Seattle's averaging, you mentioned yards per play, somewhere in the 3.8 range or something. It's even
4.7. Or no, that's yards per pass attempt. As far as overall defense, I'm looking. I don't actually have that.
Let me see if I've got that.
I can find that really quick.
3.9 yards per play.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that they're going to just kind of force the Lions to run plays and limit them on third down conversions and get them off the field that way and limit these explosive plays, which the Lions are predispositioned to have. I mean, they've got Amon St. Brown. They've got Sam Laporta, who's nursing an injury, by the way, but he's been practicing, so it's likely that he plays. And then Jamar Gibbs, David Montgomery, both those guys can make things happen. Allen Robinson, Jamison Williams, Tim Patrick, the slot guy. I think that, the key, one of the other keys to this will be the pressure that Seattle can put on their offensive line and get to Jared Goff and get Jared Goff off his spots. Now, sacks to me is a little bit of an overrated stat, but the pressures are where it's at. And if we can get pressure on Jared Goff, I think Seattle handles this game the way that it wants to handle the game. It dictates terms. If we can't get to Jared Goff, if Jared Goff is continually getting the ball out of his hands quickly, and our coverage is breaking down a little bit because we are stacking the box, we are trying to prevent those runs. Seattle struggles a little bit in this game, and it'll be interesting to see how they find themselves. And in-game adjustments will be important. And I think Mike McDonald, so far anyway, has shown that he can do that, and we'll see how that works out. How about Seattle on offense, Keith?
Well, you're going to see. This is going to be a Geno Smith show. The Detroit Lions are only giving up 3.6 yards per attempt on the ground. That's tied for third in the NFL. Yeah, they're not a team that you can run against particularly well, and that is, the Seahawks haven't been a team that's run the ball particularly well most of the time. I mean, the first week they did get Walker going, and this last week they had Charbonnet got some stuff in the second half, but early on it was hard, even against a Miami defense that's not very good. Do you know what
the status of Walker is in this game, Keith?
No.
He's been practicing limited practice reps, and that's his status. No, so that would translate into questionable, I think, but not doubtful. So I think that's an improvement. I think he plays in this game, but don't quote me on that. But I feel like he's going to get into this game and be ready. But we'll see. They may hold him out one more week. I don't know. I think Seattle's really drastically improves with Ken Walker in there in this particular game. I think Ken Walker's shiftiness and speed to get out in open space is a real difference maker. I think that our offensive line has already been struggling to open holes and lanes for Charbonnet. And we saw him go, get a little bit more productive in the second half. And I think that's grinding down defensive lines over time. And Charbonnet just continually working hard on every snap. I was real impressed with him actually last game. But yeah, Ken Walker in this game would be a huge bonus for Seattle if he plays. Aiden Hutchinson is the guy. So on the defense, Aiden Hutchinson's already got 6 sacks, leads, one of the leaders in the league in pressures. But around him, opposite him, they just really don't have anything. They kind of ran into that last year. I think they were hopeful that they would be able to get somebody else on the other side from Aiden Hutchinson. It just hasn't happened so far. And so everyone's keying in on him, rightly so. Seattle will be as well. In fact,
yeah, everyone's keying in on him, and it hasn't really helped much as he leads the NFL in sacks.
That's true. And so, in this game, Ryan Grubb is going to be tasked with trying to figure out protections on the right side. And you've got Stone Forsythe over there at right tackle. Now, Stone Forsythe has been playing better than expectations, I think. But nonetheless, he's a middling right tackle in this league at best.
Yeah, at best.
And going against one of the best premier edge rushers in the league. And so you're going to see a lot of two tight end stuff, 12 personnel from Seattle in this game. And one of that is going to be Farrell Brown and Barner inside blocking, chipping. All you need is a second, or half a second. And so you'll have a little chip there. Or if not, just two guys fully engaged on Aiden Hutchinson full time. But you need a little bit more athleticism out there. I think Barner gets a chance really kind of to be in this game and really make sure that Aiden Hutchinson gets pushed out wide and let Gino come step up and make his throws.
He's been hurt, and so therefore, don't judge him on one game when he's just getting back from an injury. But Farrell Brown was not impressive this last week against Miami. And
in which
that
way?
Was kind of disappointed. He's there to be the blocker, and he's missing blocks. And I think he had one, drop in the passing game, and it's like you're only going to get one or two opportunities a game. You got to make those. And I don't know. I came away from the game being like, I thought he would do more and be better, especially as a blocker. We've seen Barner for 2 weeks actually do a decent job. Like, do we just let the rookie continue to play? Was kind of my thought process. Now, like I said, he's also been hurt, and as guys battle back from injuries, sometimes their athleticism, is slower to come back than they want, and that kind of stuff. So I'm willing to give him, a few more games to kind of get a better feel for where he's at. But yeah, I guess I was disappointed. I had high expectations for Farrell Brown's blocking in this game, or in last week's game, and just didn't see it. So
you mentioned Geno Smith as being very important in this game. Tell me about the position players, the athletes on this offense, and how effective they can be against this Lions defense.
Well, I'm looking at the Lions defense, and go look at their corners, right? And go, okay, who here is going to cover DK Metcalf?
Yeah, they probably have Terry and Arnold on him, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Carlton Davis. Brian
right?
Branch a little bit.
You get where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Terry and Arnold is the name that popped into my mind as like, okay, he's a rookie.
Yeah.
Is their best cover corner
That's
a
definitely
rookie who was picked later in the he was a top pick, but not like a top 10 pick. Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah. No, I agree. And Amik Robinson was brought in to kind of play nickel a little bit this offseason. They drafted Brian Branch.
5'9".
Right. They drafted Terry and Arnold, Afidu Melifonwu. He's been injured a little bit. They really focused on this as being their improvement for the offseason, to improve the defensive backs in particular, because that was the weakness of their defense last year and of their team. And so everyone thought, based on those additions, that they would solve that problem and really be formidable this year. Now, that may well be true in the end, but those rookies do need a little bit of time. And you're right. There's nobody that's going to be able to guard DK now. We say that almost every week. And, DK has legitimate upside and he makes plays every week and so forth. But would you say that DK Metcalf is a top 10 receiver in this league?
Yes.
And you look at the other receivers. There's some fantastic receivers in this league right now. But I'm just talking in terms of production.
In terms of production, and I would put DK there. I mean,
so far this year, he's got the production.
Yeah, and I would put him up there. I think
he's taking a step this year.
Well, I mean, he's burned teams 2 weeks in a row. Gets behind guys, and I think if Seattle's offensive line was better and Geno had, another half second in that pocket, you would see DK, right up there as, one of the league's leading receivers, production-wise.
Yeah, that's tough. Geno's getting it out in record time for him this year.
Because he has to.
Yeah.
When he doesn't, he gets sacked. So it's been the line situation's been bad, and that's going to always give us reason to be concerned. But I just look at the defensive back situation, and I'm like, if Hutchinson and company don't get pressure, I don't believe that this group of defensive backs can cover DK Metcalf specifically.
Top 3 guys. Yeah, any of our top 3 guys.
But even if, let's say they double team him and they put bracket coverage on him and keep the safety on just him. Okay, Lockett and JSN are going to eat you apart. And yeah, I just look at all of this and I just go, I just don't. Their hope, if you are a Lions fan, is that they are able to win at the line of scrimmage with their defense, and if they do consistently, then Seattle's going to not dominate as far as offensively. But if they, for some reason, between scheme or injury or whatnot, can't win at the line of scrimmage, they're not going to win anywhere else.
That's exactly the way I see it. I mean, if it wasn't for Aiden Hutchinson, I would heavily favor Seattle in this game. And I would say a player like Jake Bobo, for example, would have a big game. Because,
he could eat in this game.
Because they're going to focus on DK, they're going to focus on Lockett. I think Njigba has a good game, chain mover type game.
Even Fant.
With the 12 personnel in there, I'm thinking maybe Bobo doesn't see the field in this game, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. But that's the thing. The Seahawks just don't block well enough.
But I would say guys like Barner and Farrow might have oversized, outsized plays in this game, potentially. Because if you're chipping, you can get out on a route, and Geno can find you underneath. I think there could be some impact there. Okay, so I wanted to talk about Bradford a little bit, and then we can talk about kind of how you feel this game's going to go. Bradford has been struggling. I mean, he started 10 games last year, posted a 46.1 overall Pro Football Focus grade this season, ranks 64th out of 65 qualified guards in the NFL.
Yeah.
33rd in run blocking grade, but 61st in pass blocking grade out of 65. Allowed 2 sacks and 8 total pressures so far. It also tied for second in the league in penalties. 3 holding penalties, 2 false starts, unnecessary roughness. And then you've got Christian Haynes, who was drafted this season, 4-year starter at UConn. He played 1 snap at right guard in week 1, 15 snaps in week 2, 1 pressure allowed, and 10 blocking snaps. When Mike McDonald went on his radio show, he talked about Christian Haynes has been playing hard and earning snaps in practice. And he said, I don't know how that translates, onto the field, but he's earned an opportunity, quote unquote, earned an opportunity. And so my question to you is, what does he need to do to earn an opportunity to displace Bradford, who's failed in games? So there's something going on there where,
I don't know,
there's a loyalty to the player, or the player, Bradford, has been playing well enough in practice where he earns the snaps during games and then fails a little bit. But Haynes hasn't been able to get on the field.
Haynes just needs to remember to stop by Starbucks in the morning before meetings and bring Huff, the offensive line coach, something to.
Well, I mean,
I'm kidding, but I'm just saying.
McDonald did say that, or Grubb said that it was just came down to raw power. Bradford listed at 6'5", 332. Haynes is 6'2" and 318. Grubb said it's just technique and power. That raw power at the guard position in the NFL is so critical, and that's why obviously Anthony can withstand a lot more in there. Just his sheer size and just what he can take on the inside. So I think Christian is not getting overpowered and overwhelmed. It is what he needs to work on. And to me, that's not this season. That's this season in the weight room plus all off season in the weight room.
That's an off season in the weight room
and diet. Yep. And obviously Grubb wants him to come in and be heavier and more powerful. So we'll probably see that in the off season. But this year, what are you going to do? I
mean, honestly, play the kid. That you have, if you're choosing between two players and one of them is incredibly ineffective, sure, raw power, it's there, but what are you getting out of it? That's my point. Now, part of it is right guard. You're playing next to a right tackle who's also not good. And that doesn't help you, especially in the running game, where if their technique's bad and they're letting guys get in on your shoulder because you're blocking, right? You're blocking the defensive tackle in front of you, and the defensive end is able to get into the gap between you and your and the right tackle beside you. It makes you have to get out of position because now you can't continue to slide. You can't continue to move where you need to. And so there's some of that, but ultimately the kid just hasn't been good. And we had expectations that he was going to be better, a whole off season of
NFL ready
learning.
Oh, you mean you're talking about Bradford?
I'm talking about Bradford. About just a whole off season of tape and technique and all the things to be better and another year of learning. And he's no longer a rookie. And he looked okay in camp. He looked good in camp. Looked okay in the preseason. And we're like, okay, maybe he's taking a step forward. And then he just hasn't. It just hasn't been good. So, if it is him, then just put Haynes in and see. I get he's not as powerful. He's not as big. He's not as tall. He's not as long. He's not as powerful. But we know his technique's good, and let's just see what happens. The alternative is also, okay, get Haynes some snaps anyway. Even if he gets a series or two at left guard for Tomlinson, because it's not like Tomlinson's been good. If Bradford's been, 64th out of 65 guards, Tomlinson's what, 52? They've both been pretty bad. And so get Haynes some snaps at one side, get him some snaps on the other, get him enough that he can continue to learn, that the game can start to slow down for him, even if it is at two positions. And it's time. Like, I know we're only 3 weeks in and got to give guys a chance and all of that, but it's been really bad in the middle. And we knew it was going to be. Like, that was the whole problem all offseason, was that we knew the interior of the line was the problem. And it's been exactly what we expected. It's been not it's the weakness of the team. Between right tackle, where you're on your third string guy, which, okay, I mean, you're on your third string guy. And, both guard spots, that's 60% of your line, and that's the weakness of this entire team. It's their Achilles heel.
did, by all accounts, John Schneider's had a fantastic offseason when you look at the whole.
Mm-hmm.
But did he miss on this?
I think it was a matter of he had limited resources and couldn't go do like all the things.
He did get Connor Williams, right before training camp. I thought that was a good thing. Now he's finally kind of coming into being legitimately in shape, and I think the play will continue to improve. So I feel good about the center spot. But yeah, you mentioned Tomlinson. It's kind of we took a shot on a player that had 2 bad seasons prior to this season. That maybe it was scheme, maybe it was the players around him, etc. And he's come in and proven that he's kind of fallen off.
Yeah, because he used to be really,
he's our best
really
option. Good. He's our best option right now. And they've got guys like Lumea and guys like Curtis who can play both tackle and guard. They've got Michael Jarrell, who they really like, but isn't ready. So Tomlinson's going to stay in there now. Christian Haynes, if Bradford or Tomlinson were injured, they wouldn't have any problem putting Haynes in first. He would be the guy.
Oh, absolutely.
But, I'm not wishing that to happen, and we'll just kind of see how this plays out. But, something needs to change, and maybe it's just the continuity. Just incrementally, we're going to get better over time, and maybe Abe Lucas comes back. Week 8. I personally, I'm starting to lean now towards the position that Abe Lucas has probably played his last game for the Seahawks. I just see no indication whatsoever, and I know they're probably trying to lessen pressure on him.
There can't be any indication right now.
Well, they say that they don't want to talk about timeline, that they have a timeline with Abe Lucas internally, and they're working through that. But there were reports just yesterday or the day before from Brady Henderson that says that this is now a halfway through the season mark for him at the earliest. And when he says that, I'm thinking, okay, it's over. They're going to shut him down at some point where it doesn't make even any sense. Now, could they get a boost if he came back? Yeah, if he was 100% healthy, and I felt good about that. But he's going to take a three-week ramp-up time to get into play shape, and even then, it's going to be interesting. And I don't even know if it's worth it.
Wouldn't him at 90%?
Yeah, but you don't want to put a player like that in at 90% and have him re-injure or something.
Yeah, it would be an improvement. I would. Especially if this team continues to do all right and heading towards the playoffs, 3-week ramp up, the level of improvement, even if he's not 100%, would be so big over what's playing now that I would. Part of it's always one of those things where when no news that's bad. You can't. They can't practice by league rule. And so they're not going to be out there. They're not going to practice. You're not going to see them. They're not going to be a part of anything. And so it's going to feel like, oh, it's just nothing. But we don't know. I mean, we've seen, video of him running and cutting and doing those things. And so, okay, if it's mid-season, then it's mid-season. But at some point, even if it's not him, even if it's Fant, getting back from that knee injury.
Well, isn't that funny? That's literally what I'm holding my hope on, is that Fant comes back after 4 weeks and is ready to go, and he just gets inserted in week whatever it is, 6, and he's just ready to play. Doesn't need any ramp up time, and that would be ideal. Of all the less than ideal situations.
Because Forsyth he hasn't been good. We know we've seen this show before.
He hasn't been awful.
This is year 3.
he hasn't been as awful as he was last year. Now, I take a look at that as personal growth plus coaching. And I think that it's been a little better. I'm going to give him a little credit because you gotta hand out a little bit of credit. I think he's been better. Like he's not the world's greatest, but he's also not the world's worst.
Yeah, he's not Anthony
I'll take
Bradford.
middling. I'll take middling right now. I will. I'll take the middling. He's the third worst starting offensive lineman on this team.
God, that's depressing. You're not wrong. You word it that way, and my brain goes, "Yeah, that's true." And then I go, "Oh God, that's true." Because I would have him. If you could improve, like we're gonna just take person. Say the Seahawks are gonna trade for a player. Who do you replace first on the line? Right?
Yeah.
Probably Tomlinson, because you've already got someone lined up to come in for Bradford on the bench, and I think Haynes is going to eventually push Bradford out. So you'd probably Tomlinson first, and then you'd put Haynes in. Is there
a situation, Keith, where obviously I think Bradford's a right tackle. He's only a right tackle, or excuse me, right guard. Isn't there a situation where Haynes is an ideal left guard?
Yeah,
athletically,
I think so. And that's why when they were like, nope, we're gonna leave him at right guard because that's where he played in college. I'm like, really? Because he's
but
athletic.
You know what? I mean, Huff and Grubb, those guys, they know what they're doing, man. These are
I know.
Very, very good offensive coordinator, offensive line guys.
I know, and part of it is also Schneider was saying, just being like, yeah, this is what we drafted him for, and we've got Tomlinson, so we already know who our starter is.
Well, just like it was last year, these guys are going to get the best 5 guys on the field, and they're going to figure out which 5 guys fit in which spots. So I feel the confidence. It's not like when they put Bradford out there that they're being cynical in any way, shape, or form. I honestly believe they think that that's the best guy in this situation right now for this team. I got to trust that. So that leads me to believe that just Christian Haynes didn't come in athletically ready to play in the NFL. And sometimes that happens. That's okay. It doesn't mean he's going to be horrible in the NFL. It just means he isn't ready right now today to take on these responsibilities. And Huff just came out and said that it was just came down to his raw power, his technique and power. That's it. That's all that's keeping him off the field. Technique and power is everything, though, right? And so it just is what it is. But I still haven't lost confidence in the kid for sure. Okay, yeah. So let's talk about your prediction.
Okay.
After all the things we've said, your early season prediction was a loss here. Mine as well. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's dynamic. Things have changed. How confident are you going into this game with this team in Detroit?
I'm not as confident in Detroit as I was before the season, but I still think that they're a top 3 team in the NFC, and I don't think Seattle's there yet. It is a situation where Detroit's at home. They've lost, is it 2 or 3 straight years to Seattle, and they know, right? They're a good team. They're a playoff team. They're going to win their division probably, unless Minnesota continues to defy all the odds. But they're a Super Bowl contender, and they know that Seattle, which hasn't been in that level recently, the last few years, has continued to beat them. They are going to want this game so badly. One, they don't want to fall to 2-2 because if you're 500, are you a legit playoff? You know what I mean? Like there's that kind of thing. Like they think that they're, top 2, top 3 team in the NFC, which they are. and they want to prove it, and they're going to prove it against a team that always seems to come up and beat them. And so, I think that it's a home game for them. It's going to be hard for Seattle. This is not going to be, I don't think this is going to be a blowout in any way. I think Gino's going to have a great game. I think the defense is going to make life really hard on Jared Goff. I just think that Detroit pulls this one out. And it's going to be close. It's going to be like 23-24.
I thought about that score, actually. Okay, so here's my deal. I think that this might be one of the last times you bet against the Seattle team. That's what I think. I think that there's so many and you mentioned them. There's so many storylines, and that was just on the Detroit side, right? There's so many storylines on the Seattle side as well. Yeah. And there's so many weapons in this game. Like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and Jigba. And then if Walker comes back, you've got Walker, and then you've got Charbonnet to kind of emphasize that physical running game, at the end of the game to close something out if you should be there. And Geno Smith, right? Geno is just like playing very well this year. He's almost 75% completion percentage. He's getting the ball out of his hands quick. He's a perfect quarterback for this offense. I love that. But at the end of the day, it's all going to come down to play in the trenches. Out of all those things, out of all of their players that can make plays happen, led by Amon St. Brown, Amon-Ra, and Jared Goff, and Amara Gibbs, and Laporta. And then on the other side, you've got all our guys. Out of all of that, it's really going to come down to play on the interior of the offensive line on Seattle, and it's going to come down to, can we protect against Detroit? Conversely, on the other side, can our pass rushers, depleted with Williams and Murphy probably out in this game, can they get to the quarterback? Can they get pressure on Jared Goff, move him off his spots, disrupt timing? Can that allow our defensive backs to really make plays in this game? Which could be a factor, by the way, turnovers. And that's what it is. And I think that Seattle has the edge, honest. I think our offensive line is okay. Geno kind of mitigates that a little bit, getting the ball out of his hands quick. I think Ryan Grubb does an excellent job understanding that and will, in this game, know that he needs to protect. He'll have an extra blocker in there in the tight end to chip on Aiden Hutchinson. That gives Geno time. I think Geno's a professional. He understands the dynamic of that. I'm not worried about our offense. On the defensive side, we just need to do enough up front, and then in the secondary, make plays, limit explosive plays, etc. I think Seattle comes out on top. I think Mike McDonald is the factor in this game. Now, Pete Carroll and company went into Detroit and won games. We won at home. We're 3-0 in the last 3 games. I think over the last 10, we're like 9 wins against Detroit. So, but this is a Mike McDonald team now. And last year in Baltimore, he whipped them, figured out a way to slow down that offense. And I think they do again in this game. And that's enough to tip the scales for me. I think Seattle takes this. I thought about that score, that close score, a grinder. And then I thought, you know what? I think Geno's really going to light this thing up. And it's going to be, I think we're going to score in the 30s in this game. And I think we're going to hold Detroit to we're going to shock the world. I think we're going to hold Detroit to 20 points. And we end up scoring 31 to 34. Wow. So I think it's 31 or 34 to 17.
Honestly,
Seattle.
If that happens, there is going to be so much hype around the Seahawks team after this week.
Yeah.
Because they will have just dominated a really good football team. As you were talking there, you actually made me less confident. Because Seattle? you reminded me that that Byron Murphy is probably going to be out. And you're going to replace such a key cog in the interior of that defense with Miles Adams.
But Uchenna Nwasu is coming back.
I know. I'm just saying, right in the middle of the defense and the running, ability to stop the run and get pressure up the middle and that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden I go, oh, that hurts.
Is it
so
Miles
bad.
Adams that would get those snaps?
I believe it is. Yeah.
Jaron Reed needs to come up.
He needs to play.
Jaron Reed has had a middling season so far, I think. And I think Jaron Reed would play a key factor with Byron Murphy not being in there.
Well, but Jaron Reed's going to be having to replace Williams' production.
Yeah.
And then Miles
Mike
Adams
Morris.
is going to have to.
Mike Morris is going to have a game. Have to have a game.
He has to. And that's what really what I'm thinking is that you've got to figure out that part. That's hard. That means that Gibbs is going to get more room in the middle and Goff's going to have more time. And I hate that.
I do realize that there are physical limitations, physical abilities, God-given abilities to play football at a high level that drops off from Byron Murphy to a player like Mike Morris or Miles Adams or some of the other guys we've talked about. But the key for me is coaching and scheme. Mm-hmm. These guys are ready to play. They're playing well as a unit. They understand their roles. They're well defined. Last year, you couldn't even define roles on the defense, really.
Yeah.
This year, it's so well defined. Everyone knows what everyone else is doing, where they need to be. It's well oiled already, and this is kind of the prove it game. Where are we? What have we been working for? The you can never dismiss NFL games and teams. And so the first 3 games are what they are. And I think they really played well against inferior opponents, which is what you need to do in the NFL. And we haven't always done that as a franchise.
Yep.
And I think in this game where we're so evenly matched, I think it does come down to scheme and to mental ability to rise up. And I think there's just something about Mike Macdonald, dude. I just think that his players have gone all in on adopting his philosophy, on adopting his discipline, and I just feel like this is a coming out party for Seattle, and it really translates on the field. And I could be completely wrong, and they take a nosedive and they regroup and so forth, but I don't feel that. I don't think that a Mike Macdonald team this year is going to get blown out.
Yeah. I don't expect them to get blown out, and not with the defense. I mean, unless the offense just has one of those games where, Gino has like the super off day and throws 3 picks and that kind of stuff.
3 and out.
Yeah. And I just don't see that defense giving up enough points to ever for it to be a blowout.
I tell you what, if the team against the Dolphins that played in the second and third quarter shows up in this game, we lose, and it's ugly.
Yeah. I just think that they looked at Miami and they're like, they're not coming back from this. It's already 2 touchdowns and they can't score touchdowns, and they just relaxed. And you can't go through the motions in an NFL game. Because even a bad team has got athletes, they've got players. So I think they relaxed, and I think they needed to get smacked in a little bit to wake up and get back out there. And then they finally did.
It's good to learn your lessons in the NFL when you win ball games.
Mm-hmm. All right. So before we go, I just want to look. I've got an NFC West question for you. I already told you that the Seahawks were the best team in the league in terms of yards per pass attempt. Do you know where our 3 divisional rivals stand without looking?
I do not. Not on that stat, no.
The worst team in the league, number 32, is the Los Angeles Rams. The 31st team in the NFL is the Arizona Cardinals, and the 30th team in the NFL is the San Francisco 49ers.
And where do we stand?
1. The Seahawks are the best team in the NFL at yards per pass attempt, and their 3 division rivals are the bottom 3 teams.
Yeah, we already knew that the Cardinals and the 49ers were going to struggle on defense, and the Rams as well. I mean, the Rams have allowed 91 points so far this season. They are a paper tiger. Now, I thought that would be true last year. I really did. I didn't think that they had the roster to compete last year, and it surprised me that they got to 10 wins. But this year, and the Cardinals are an up and coming team, and I think they've had a tougher schedule so far. So it'll be interesting to see where they fall. 49ers, to me, that offense is always going to be
the 49ers have become an offensive team. Like they are winning because of Brock Purdy in the offense and not their defense. Their defense has not been good, but their offense is in like the top 5 in a whole bunch of categories. And that is so weird to me, especially with Christian McCaffrey hurt. I'm like, wow.
That'll be interesting to see how they play. And, and McCaffrey, it looks like he's going to be out for a while. So it'll be interesting to see if we even face him this year. Fun show. I think, this will be a very interesting game. I love the matchups in this game. I love the storylines. It's just chock full of everything you want in a football game. It's going to be the first game where I'm nervous, like pregame. Like it's going to be an exciting game. Monday night, Seattle has a great history there. We'll see if Mike McDonald can continue that, and fun. Like that. Even the coaching matchup to me, you got Dan Campbell, Mr. Gruff, like physical, like everything is like iron and steel with him. And then Mike McDonald's such a tactician. Like you listen to Mike McDonald talk, and you're just like, yeah, that guy has a master's degree in finance, and you can just see the intellect.
He might have a master's in finance, but he's got a PhD in defensive football.
Yeah, no, he's a smart guy, and he knows how to push the right buttons on his team and team discipline and all that stuff. I'm so impressed. I was so impressed with Mike McDonald so far.
Did you read the article this week? I think it was in The Athletic, that they didn't list names, but because they do a fitness test.
That was the Brady Henderson.
Is that who it was? Piece. And they were like, there were veteran players who came in, and he's like, if it wasn't for the guaranteed money in your contract, you would be cut right now.
Yeah, and because he was talking to Dre Jones. I'm pretty damn sure of it.
Really?
The first name that popped into my mind when he said that was Dre Jones. Now, I could be completely wrong because I do not know for sure, but that's the first name that came to my mind was Dre Jones not being in shape. It could have been, somebody like Byron Murphy, who by all reports came in because it was without being in shape.
It was a veteran player that the article specifically, and the name that came to mind for me was Jerron Reed.
Interesting.
So interesting that we both picked defensive players.
Yeah. Well, he's comfortable on the defensive side and calling a player out like that, especially a player that's established, that was thought to have, come in and have a big role. And then, I don't know that he necessarily that wasn't a public thing. That was a private message, I think, that he was trying to convey at the time.
Well, it's public now.
It's public now, and everyone wants to know who it is. But yeah, I think those two guesses are probably, it's got to be one of those two. I would think. And I say that about Jones because I know he came in not ready. He had to work, and then he got hurt, and that made it worse. But interesting. I'm thrilled with the process, the off-season process, and where they're at as a team with Mike McDonald. Like, they're ahead of schedule to me.
Oh yeah, like I can't believe how quickly they've made this work. We both said, so the two players that we said, I click over, and so I'm going to look at defensive tackle. Jerron Reed has the most snaps played, and Dre Jones has the second most snaps played.
Yeah. Good for
More than
those
Leonard
guys.
Williams and Byron Murphy. So,
Well, and that goes to to show that those two players are very diverse in their skill sets and that can stay on the field.
well, and it also doesn't hurt that Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy played a combined 17 snaps during week 3. So, Reed had to play 80% of the snaps. So that's part of why those numbers are what they are. But
did you see we signed Matt Gotel again in the for the practice squad?
I did not, and I'm surprised they were able to, given the way the injury rules work.
We also signed Quentin Bahana as well to that position. But Matt Gotel is coming out. He wouldn't surprise me if this week he's one of the activated players.
Oh, I wouldn't surprise me at all if he's
because Jonathan Hankins is out there on an island. They could use some help there.
Yeah. And Hankins has played more than I think I expected before I started looking at snap counts. He played 54% of the snaps against the Dolphins.
Which is really amazing considering the passing attack they thought they should have coming into the game. Mm-hmm. But it turned into, kind of a running thing for them because their quarterback play was so shitty.
Yeah, but they still have guys like Tyreek Hill and Waddle and those guys. If you give a quarterback, even a bad quarterback, enough time, those guys can hurt you.
Jonathan Hankins becomes more effective with the players around him. I mean, you look at Dre Jones, Leonard Williams, Mike Morris, Byron Murphy. All of a sudden, Jonathan Hankins can also get to the quarterback now. At least the penetration in the middle. So leaving him out there on short yardage looks like a run play. And they elect to pass. He's still effective out there. So
yeah, Mike Morris has barely played.
Coach really loves Mike Morris. He talked about Mike Morris specifically on his radio show and said, "Man, that guy works, and I have complete confidence in him when I put him out there. Like he's going to do exactly what he's tasked to do, and he's going to do it well." So it surprises me that he's not getting more snaps.
He's only played 25 snaps, and so once the team got up by 3 touchdowns, they put in all the backups. And that's when a lot of these snaps came from.
Think about 25 snaps and how that translates to how the defense is playing.
Yeah.
So if they're doing 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, that's 3 series. I know 4 series.
He only had 14 snaps in against the Dolphins, and that's he was playing when all the backups came in. But just to put it in context, Travis Gibson has 24. Tyus Bowser has 12 on defense. And Bowser didn't even suit up the first 2 games. So this is a team that at defensive end, it has been the Boye Mafe and Derek Hall show. And then Dre Jones getting a bunch of snaps there too. Like those 3 guys have gotten pretty much everything.
And now Uchenna Nwasu's coming back.
Yeah.
I really like that.
I'm excited to have Nwasu back. He's just so dynamic and so
I have to hand it to Derek Hall. He's been one of the most impressive defensive players out of anybody.
Yeah.
So far this season, Derek Hall.
We said this last year, because Boye Mafe was he played a lot, but didn't really do anything his rookie year. And then everyone was like, whoa, this kid's improved in camp. And then he just had a great season last year. And then Hall, being the rookie, was didn't really do anything. And we were like, he needs to make that Boye Mafe jump.
Yeah.
And then he did.
Yeah. Well, Mike McDonald kind of spoke to that as well. Sorry, I keep going back to him and his radio show, but you get a lot of information out of that thing. He specifically said about Derek Hall, he's like, rookies have a hard time. He's like, I watched the tape last year. I attribute that more to, being a rookie and having all the distractions, not being able to play in the off season. You go through the draft process. It's hard to get your workouts in. So you come in really not ready in minicamp. You kind of are trying to make up for time. You're trying to learn all the plays. You're playing slow because you're thinking too much, and then you just don't get the snaps and the reps as the season progresses. And when you do, you tend to struggle a little bit. And he says we looked at all of that. We fully expected Hall, considering how much work he put into the offseason, to make that jump, and he did. And so, he said we were through. He said that about a lot of the rookies. A lot of the rookies go through similar things, and so it's hard. And I thought about Byron Murphy, because I know Byron Murphy came in and really struggled that first month in camp. He was kind of listed on the depth chart at second string, and in the snap counts early in the preseason kind of showed that, and reports were that he came in kind of out of shape and needed to kind of work into shape there. So it's a real thing for sure. But I'm thrilled with Derek Hall, like stout against the run and can get to the passer, and really is strong. I mean, you can just see the strength in the way that he plays. And a terrific human, like to boot. He's a very high character guy, and so good times. We got the number one defense.
How do you get Nuwasu, Hall, and Mafe on the field?
Well, that's a great question. Can Hall stump down into the 3-tech? I don't know. I mean, if he could. If he could, then that would be the way. But I love that rotation though. I mean, Tevis Gibson, probably doesn't get on the field now very much, but I'm okay with that. You got your top three guys, and then Dre Jones, Miles Adams, Mike Morris, Jerron Reed, Jonathan Hankins in the rotation there in the middle. That's still a good defense, even with Williams and Byron Murphy out.
I think that you just said it. I think that Dre Jones has been getting a bunch of snaps at the outside linebacker. I think he moves back into the 5-tech and doesn't see any snaps at outside linebacker, just because now you've got to fit Nuwasu in there.
Yeah.
So
interesting. That's good for the team. I mean, here you are going into one of the most important games of the season, regardless of when it is on the schedule. Game 4, and you're missing Williams and Murphy, and you're hoping that your defense doesn't miss a beat, which is great news for the depth and really the scheme. Good stuff. All right, let's get out of here. Good show. Everyone enjoy the game. We'll come back early next week, and we'll talk about what we saw. You can find Keith on Twitter at Myers NFL. You can find me at NWC Hawk. The show is at Hawks Playbook on Twitter, and your favorite podcast platforms, all of them. Go out there and search Seahawks Playbook Podcast. You'll find it. When you do, hit that subscribe button so you can make sure it's in your feed every week, and then our YouTube channel as well. So until next time, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NWCHawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.